Good morning.
You.
Matthew, how are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm really tired. So
Well, you
it
will go
was
for
a busy day yesterday. It was been a busy week. It was busy times. I don't have a lot, and it's really throwing me off because one of my screens is really bright and the other one is it's decidedly not right now. So it's
Well,
like my
we
eyes
can go
are
for
just
as little or as long as you want. So
yeah. Doug's coming back over to do more pewter work today.
you're getting there though. That's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much done. We have to figure out some. For those who don't know, got a new tower yesterday. Got to figure out some stuff. Got to take old secondary tower apart and take everything. It's the first time I ever built a computer. Now, don't get me wrong. I did not build this computer. I was
I
helped greatly.
yeah, look. Don't let him sell himself short, guys. He went down and mined
That's
silicone for the chips
right.
himself.
That's right. No, so it's been
Totally bespoke.
bespoke parts. Yeah, no. Our good friend Douglas was like, "You need a new computer," so we made that happen. Um, and yeah, it's done. It's just it was a lot, man. It was a lot of work. I didn't like the
Oh yeah,
overlay.
I saw you guys were working on it in the morning, and then you posted again in like the evening, late evening, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was. It's. I've got meat hands. I've got like catcher mitt hands, and I've got nerve damage in one of my arms. It's pretty severe. Um, and then just arthritis and tendonitis, and I've broken my fingers a bunch. Trying to do some of the tiny, putting tiny screws
Yeah,
in was so frustrating. And on
yeah,
top
no,
of that,
that's what Doug is for.
yeah, on top of that, when your hands don't always work, and I was terrified. He was like, "This is just like doing Meng. This is like putting Mengs together." And I was like, "It's fucking most assuredly not."
I
Like,
mean,
if I break a miniature, it's like I can pin it and re-glue it, or I can
yeah,
just be like, "I gotta get this miniature again."
it's in the same space, I guess. Like driving a car is just like flying a space shuttle.
Pretty much. Well
There's
said.
there's a lot there's commonalities.
Yeah. It's like brushing my teeth with a fucking hacksaw. Um. So yeah, we did all that.
Yeah, brushing your teeth and oral surgery, same thing. It's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. We did all that. It's up and running, and goddamn, does it look pretty? And man, it has a ton of lights in it that glow, and that's real pretty. We also caught up on Severance. He was already ahead of me, so he had not seen the third episode of season 2, so we watched that. Matt, I don't know if you watch that show or not.
I was even evangelizing for it when it was on Roku in the Discord.
It's great.
Oh yes, it is. We haven't watched any of season 2 yet. We're gonna probably wait till it's done or close to done, and then do an Apple TV trial.
You should reach out to Doug about Dougflix. He can always hook you up too, because it's all he's got it all on Dougflix, baby. Yeah, it's goddamn, it's good. It's
well, the other thing too is the way the show is set up. I don't necessarily want to have to like wait.
That's true as well. I will say this: they changed the opening, and it's even creepier now than it was.
I'm fine with that because the original opening didn't do a lot for me.
I love that original opening, and that music is the best.
I don't think it was,
banger.
but it just like the original opening just kind of like had like AI vibes to it. And
I think it feels like it's. So I have a weird thing with this. I think that show has huge retrofuturism because you'll see like crazy technology, but then they are all using tape recorders, or they'll have crazy technology and they'll have a remote control that's like the size of my hand that's got 3 buttons on it. It's weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's made to throw you off. Yeah, well, computers.
I think. I don't know how because I don't know how intentional it is. If it's deliberately limiting what they have access to in those areas to prevent them from being able to do stuff
I thought that as well.
places. But
But
I will,
there is a
before we get
scene.
into that, I do want to mention that it is wild that that is a real place. That
Really,
the Lumen headquarters. Yeah, it's the old. It's like an old General Electric place. So I think
that's a
like
hell of a
all the
building.
interiors, like it's now been turned into like mixed use housing and whatever. So like I'm sure all the lobby scenes are just the people who work and live there, and they redress it. But I
Oh,
think all the office stuff is actually shit like in that building.
wow. Well, I will. Well, what reason I will say that is there's a scene in the second season where someone is watching. Someone in power is watching. Click, click. I'm like, that's so weird. Also, the thing they use to talk to the board,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's
I did
also
see
you find out that's not just down in the below floors. That's on
that's.
the upper floors too.
I
But
did see
yet,
some
but yet
posts.
Bethany. But yet, is it Bethany? I can't remember her name for sure.
Yeah. Anyway,
Who
I know who you're
talks
talking
to
about.
them through the headset? It's just such a weird mishmash of technology that
Yeah,
does like feel real off-putting.
I did see somebody post like, if you didn't want me to think that Severance was,
Because at the same time they're using like wild biometric implants,
sure,
and shutting off parts of people's brains, and you know,
it's kind of that,
it's retrofuturism, which is something I love.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of that Watchmen vibe where it's like
Yeah,
it's not that different from the real gym, but it's like, oh yeah, all these cars are electric,
it's super analog horror as well.
or like the Batman animated stuff where it's like, yeah, everybody's wearing hats and big boxy suits, um, and the TVs are in black and white, but we've got robots and
Mm,
computers and
yeah, yeah. It's I find it fascinating.
yeah.
It's really well done. It's really well acted.
Oh,
Uh,
I mean, people are, I mean, justifiably so. But Trammell Tillman as Milchick, holy
yeah.
shit, man, that guy.
Just wait till you get second season, man.
I'm looking forward.
Milkshake. We
To
get far more into Milkshake, and
it.
they froze federal funding, and we part of what we do counts on HUD.
Yeah, yeah,
That was fun.
yep.
Yeah, I the way I look at it very simply is there's a no. He's not smart enough, and they're not smart enough to want to do all the little things that will fuck things up that they can get away with. They're trying to
I'm
do
not even
so much.
like, I don't even give a shit about anything he's doing. It's all the Musk shit at the Office of Management and Budget. They're in there. We don't know what they're doing. We don't know why. They've got access to the payment systems and information, and fucking Chuck Schumer's out here tweeting about tomato prices. And it's
That
like,
guy is. So here's my feelings about that. I watched a speech he gave where he fucked up and just kept repeating himself over and over again. Why people like that, the aged, folks who might have been great at their job, even I'll give them 10 years ago, being generous. Why we tolerate that now? I have the God, I'm trying to think of the term for old people running the
gerontocracy.
gerontocracy. I don't know why we tolerate that.
Well,
And they just keep getting rich. I mean, that's the thing. Hey, I'll put it this way: as I told people at work this week when I gave 2 rousing ass chewings to residents, all of the residents, male and female. I don't tolerate isms unless it's classism. So take your racism, your sexism, all that shit, ableism, and get the fuck out. But if you're like, I'm upset with the people who are controlling wealth in the country, I got time for you. I got time for you. I'm here for you, boo. Yeah,
this experience is canceled, motherfuckers.
I'm when I take personal feeling out of it, I'm very much like, where are we going to be in 4 years? Like from just a clinical, like detached viewpoint.
Yeah.
I'm very much like we are in the very like early mid portion of the dystopia. How far is it going to fall?
Yep.
Because I think at the same time, one of the things I have a little bit of hope for, like I was listening to a thing on tariffs this morning and how Canada was like, all right, we warned you if you did this shit, we're going
Yeah.
to target red states. We're going to target the U.S. in general in return, but we're going to super target the states that voted for you.
Well, and they're also somebody up there was like, and is proposing, and we'll see if they do it, but 100% tariffs on Tesla products.
Yeah.
Which good. Not great for the company I work for, which relies heavily on SpaceX and Tesla for our stuff. But that's a bigger problem that I'll deal with if it hits me.
But like they were saying, they were like, I think the good thing, well, and I took away from it, was the good thing is a lot of people who voted for that shit, who were dumb enough to believe that it was just for the price of eggs, which might have been a good shield for some of their other bullshit. But
yeah, I was going to say I don't even think that's if I don't even think they would say that was really what it was.
But they're realizing like, oh, we really fucked up.
Hopefully,
we really, really shit the bed.
Hopefully,
I really do hope that there's a push hard from not even left or center left or far left.
Oh, it's going to have to be. I mean,
who push for like the removal of identity politics from the political state as a whole, as far as like, we're not fighting this culture war shit anymore. Just be like, hey, if you want to do that shit, then you're obviously a fucking racist. We're done with you. Like, don't court them. Like, you wasted all this time courting people on the mid right and on the middle that one of the things all you had to do to win that too is like, get the fuck out of Israel's pocket. Stop committing genocide.
I'm just not seeing the freaking.
You don't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
I don't know. I think I mean, at least with the people who are in charge right now, I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of push on the tariffs just because, like, it's more than.
It'll be interesting.
It implied that it was going to be faster, so that like Wall Street is freaking the fuck out.
It'll be interesting though when the people who have been using, they're going to take your jobs as one part of is the backbone of their racism. What happens when they find out? No, they weren't. They literally weren't. Like, you're so dumb. What happens to those the fence sitting racists is what I like to refer to them as. The people who are like, well, I might be a little racist, but I'm mainly racist for economic reasons. What happens when they are like, oh, I'm literally, I'm finding out like I'm literally just being robbed blind. And taxes? Oh, buddy, just wait. You ain't seen shit yet. They're going to wreck the tax code. And it's going to be such a fucking mess. Like, what they're planning on doing, like, it's like in their giant manifesto of doom. Hey, Super Spike, Asteroid 2035. I mean, hey. If only there were midterms. Yeah, I think it's gonna. Again, when I don't allow myself to be completely enveloped by my personal feelings towards it, and I look at it instead from a very clinical viewpoint, or maybe even as someone who's like, how can I make this into a story, or the beats of it, then I'm like, I don't see it getting better, but my brain is kind of going, how bad will it get before there's not just one or two CEOs murdered?
I mean, there are things in place.
I should say murdered. I mean, justice.
There are. I mean, I've seen some interesting, talk and analysis, and it is, it does ring true to me in some ways where it's, okay, well, they're kind of doing like it's like a performance art version of fascism, because they don't have, like, they barely won. They barely have majorities in Congress. And like, we're a very large, spread out country with a lot of, federal stuff, and it's not, like the states still have a lot of power. So, and is how much is the military, if push comes to shove, actually going to back him? Some people will, yes, but will the military as a whole? Probably not, because it's just a lot of people who it's not diehards.
No, and when you go after beloved military figures and strip them of things out of spite,
all the diehard people.
I can't remember all the stuff they took from Mark Milley, but immediately, like on day one, people were not happy about that.
Yeah,
and you put Pete Hegseth in charge of that, which is just a lot of military people are like appalled.
Yeah, and all the diehards are the ones who are wearing freaking Six Pistols to Cracker Barrel, and who
to the empty defunct Cracker Barrel, because I think they're out of business now.
Who wouldn't last a week, actually sleeping in the woods and eating rations.
Yeah, I mean,
so there's that, but it's I mean, there's a lot more room for things to go.
Well, and that's the thing too that they were talking about this morning. They're like, you have to remember too with the Senate that every state gets 2. So population dense California, New York, places that voted real blue, dark blue, get the same amount of senators as Montana.
Yeah.
So that's why you saw performative votes against Hegseth, because they knew they could lose 3 and still win the vote. So they literally just were like, okay, you 3, you can go out and perform. Dance monkey dance.
I don't know. I mean, and as far as the Senate goes, that's a goddamn mess, because the fact that
both the houses and the judiciary branch are completely fucked. Yeah, I think it's going to take a large-scale house cleaning, unprecedented nature. Maybe maybe on the level of, post-Civil War, Reconstructionism, before we can get any type of semblance of an actual functional government again. But I don't foresee people in power wanting that to happen. It's too easy to be performative up there for the vast majority of them, and collect their check.
Well,
lobbyist money. The once you make companies people, we had problems.
I certainly hope that those who are in power right now don't think they're going to be able to stick around come the midterms.
Well, I also think one of the things about that is, like, rather than back off some of the bullshit, especially after Mangione, they doubled down.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, okay, well, you got 1. Big deal. Look what we did. We perp walked you with all these people. We're sending a message. And it's like, I do not think you realize what that actually meant. When that dude goes into lockup and is treated like a fucking king because of what he did, it's because y'all don't realize like how fucking hated you are for the way you treat the rest of us like fucking cattle. It's shit comes around. Like, this is the thing that always breaks my brain, is like, history repeats itself. If these folks are so fucking smart, they should realize like when the cycle is coming up again, and then just cash the fuck out. I don't know if they all think they're just going to move to Mars because they're just destroying the planet on top of that, but if they're so narcissistic, they just don't care.
I don't. Yeah, I think it's just they've never experienced any consequences till now, so why should this be any different?
I saw a meme that said, "Why is it the American people have to serve 4 years for his crimes?" And I was like, "That's fair. That's fair." Anywho, I was thinking about this mainly, Matt, because I was like, "Man, that would make a pretty good RPG thing," and then I was like, "Maybe that's too close to home. Maybe that's a little bit too fucking much."
It might be a little bit much at the moment.
Yeah. But I like the idea of, like, especially like Star Wars wise, finding yourself, because they're going to start exploring a little bit more, finding yourself in a situation where you are in a society, like coming across and exploring a society where you can tell it's on the edge of um, not the full blown collapse, but it's in the first stages. Like wasn't Anatin, it was the other planet they found in Skeleton Crew that had fully collapsed. I can't remember the name of it. That was like literally in a Mad Max style resource war.
Well, yeah, it was at something.
Yeah, I like the idea of that, like coming into that before the shit hits the fan. It's kind of like being starting your game right before the zombie apocalypse.
Sure.
And they're there when things completely come off the rails. So, kind of looking at it through that lens a little bit of like, do you have the ability to step in and make any positive changes, or do you just go, that's not, let's prime directive this, let's get the fuck out of here. We're not going to mess with these people's the entirety of their forward momentum in history. But I'm not sure. I've kind of just started rolling that around in my head in the last week. As I was like watching, I will watch occasionally this gentleman on YouTube called Feral Historian. And he does a lot of just kind of like, what am I trying to say here? Words are hard. A lot of themes and dynamics from popular fiction and how they have real world application in our history. I do not always agree with him politically. That's just fine, because he's an interesting dude and he's doing these essays basically on interesting things, on things I find interesting.
Okay.
But I find a lot of like the same touchstones in a lot of the work he's been talking about lately, like They Live and Stargate and some different things where he's talking about like the paternal state versus the state that basically comes in, becomes paternal to another state. Because that was his thing, is like, he's like, They Live is all about the paternal state. It's about the state controlling everything. And then letting you think you have any type of autonomy, which you do not. And he's like, Stargate is literally you going to other states and saying, this is what we're doing now. I'm going to save you. And like how those two things relate, that they're similar but different. And how one's much more acceptable until people involved in the paternal state, and he was using Stargate as the example, people in the paternal state that realize they're in the paternal state. And then they start to question, like, are you doing this to us too? Like, oh, we're going to these other people's worlds and like telling them how to live. And like, that's,
yep.
But then are like, are you doing this to me? And real into non-mythological terms, like taking out the Joseph Campbellism, the thing of it, they are really kind of frightening. They're very, very
they're terrifying.
Yeah, they're like very, very powerful individuals who can kill you very quickly and then say it's because of they saw it in the future and it was justice.
Yeah. Yep. I sat down, I had some, I did some fucking peyote and saw this stuff, and it's thought crime.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, thought crime. I know, because he was also he's had a couple episodes on 1984 and books that are very similar that I was not familiar with.
Yeah, it's the Minority Report thing. It's like, how can we
we are back.
We're gonna punish you for crimes that you haven't committed yet.
Yeah. He also has done some on like Fallout, but not the TV show, the video games, and like how the economy could become stable. What we're talking about, Star Wars wise, the idea of running into. That was another thing too. I can't remember what I was reading, but someone was talking about the black and white function of Star Wars and how we rarely see examples in Star Wars of powerful individuals of different that races are treated like monocultures.
Mm.
And how we rarely see deviation from that. So you don't see like divided communities basically, but it's because we're pulled out in such a macro view generally of Star Wars that like
Usually, yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, it's not
I mean, the one
the
example they said that doesn't do that is the Mon Cal and the Korans, but there again, they're like they're also different races competing for one planet by and large. So it's like you don't have actually like Mon Cal separatists and Mon Cal loyalists. It's not like a civil war that way. There's like it's just two races who are competing for the same resources in space. So yeah, it's interesting to try to think of that and how I mean, I think also like having to figure out a way to do something more political intrigue. Twitch is being weird. I don't get it. I really don't. I'm sorry, but I don't know why we have so much problems with it. Super Spike, I do apologize. But
we'll have to mess around and see what we can.
I mean, I don't know if it's because it's my Twitch and not Known World because we still haven't got that sorted out. But
I wouldn't think so, but who knows? I
mean, same thing with YouTube though, and the fact that like YouTube's a hellscape. Well, I will say this. I did a test earlier in the morning and it popped on live for like 3 seconds. And then I popped it right back off because I'm running it through a different computer. So I wanted to make sure things worked. But yeah, also I like Streamlabs mainly because it's $40 cheaper minimum. But I was so used to StreamYard that some of this is very much not user friendly for me. Because changing up how I have to look at a thing after I've done repeatedly, my brain when it finally gets it ingrained, it holds on to it. It's hard for me to make alterations. But so here's my thing. This kind of,
I mean, you've got however long, years of using StreamYard. You're still learning this. So,
well, I could be learning things forever. And I think sometimes I'm just going to have a really, really hard time. Like I had to do a thing at work. I have to use the MVR system, which is the Veterans Registry through the federal government. And you have to apply to get access. I applied in the first week of November. And someone from Veteran Services and I have gotten to be pretty good work friends. And they showed me how to do it. And I told them, I was like, hey, Barbara, you can show me this now, but if I don't get a chance to use it, I will forget this in 20 minutes. And she was like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We'll look at it again. I just got access last week. And I emailed her. I was like, hey, when do you want to go over this again? Because I finally have access and I don't even remember how to get in. And she was like, yeah, we can do that. So I try to tell people sometimes I don't think people fully grasp how hard it is when you look at something, you should know how to do it or someone showed you how to do it. And then it's just not, there's like a black hole in your knowledge. Because there's times where someone will show me something and they'll say, hey, remember when I showed you that thing? And I'll literally look at them and go, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, not only do I not remember how to do it, I don't remember we ever had a conversation about it. This is the first moment I'm even hearing about this.
I mean, I don't think you're alone in that. But I do understand the frustration.
Well, and part of my frustration with it, pardon me, everyone, but I used to not be that way. I used to have a very sharp ability to hold on to even, I would always tell my wife, like I almost said I would always tell the wife. I would always tell my wife, my easy one was Green Lantern 2814, and she would say, "What? 2814? That's Earth's sector in the Green Lantern Corps."
Yeah,
but I don't remember when my sister's birthday is.
I mean, I think that's uncommon. I
got lost in a car parking lot on Friday for 35 minutes. Repeatedly hitting like the lock unlock button to find my car. I couldn't. I wrote down on my hand where I parked, and I still could not find it. I retraced my steps exactly back. I just couldn't find it. And eventually I found it just because it finally started honking. But it was because just I can't trust my brain to do what it says it's doing. Now, I think I've told this story on stream before, but like a couple months ago when I went to get gas after work, I'd go to 3 different gas stations. Why? Well, because the first gas station, I could not figure out how to open the gas cap or where it was. The second one, I figured that out, but I couldn't figure out how to operate the credit card machine, how to put my card in. I literally just kept looking at it going, I don't understand what this means. The third one, I sat in my car for 5 minutes and put all of it together and then went out and did it. I literally got in the car and was like, woo, victory. And it's the stupidest fucking thing for your brain to like basically go against you in those cases where you're like, part of your brain is going, we know how to fucking do this. And the rest of the brain is like, I don't know, man. I just work here. So it's a weird feeling. It can be very, very infuriating, especially like processing speed and vocabulary. I get very frustrated by my inability to grab words. A lot of time I feel like I'm walking through the library inside my head and I know where the book should be and I reach for it and it's not there. And I just get pissed off because I'm like, there's a book there. Like that word is right there. I know that word. And then I can't find it. It's gross. It's a gross feeling. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that would be awful.
So that's where I get like very, very frustrated. Doug showed me how to do something yesterday. I was like, you have to show me again. And I was like, you have to show me again. You show me again. He's like, okay, we went over this like 4 times now. And I was like, no, one more time. And then I was able to grasp it. And like when I went to bed last night, I told Cassandra, I was like, oh, this thing like this. And then you do this and you do this. And she was like, okay, why are you telling me this? I was like, because I remember it. Like it's right there. I can, I've got my eyes closed and I get burned into my fucking retinas. I know how to do that now. Like today, if you gave me all the parts from yesterday, I could do that again because we spent hours on it. And I was so fucking terrified of breaking any of it. That I really had to take my time. But that was like 6 hours of putting something together that we probably could have got done in like, I don't know, real fast. So, but anyway, no one wants to hear about that shit. So ideas, societies in the second stage of collapse. Star Wars. The other thing I was thinking about is I watched someone talk about Paranoia, the game, and I'm really starting to go, maybe I should go reread how to run Paranoia and just run Paranoia. Because there's a lot of like Paranoia DNA and Severance.
Yeah.
That idea of like Big Brother loves you and just get to be on the lookout for the commie mutants who are looking to take down Big Brother. And oh, by the way, you are a commie mutant, and you have six versions of yourself because you're all clones. You don't even know who the real version is even anymore, and it's this weird kind of Cold War, 80s aesthetic at the same time, but retrofuturism. Mm-hmm. So I think it would be kind of interesting to do something with that. Plus, I know like Hess has repeatedly asked, like, do you know how to run Paranoia? I don't know. I think I might have it. Yeah, so that. I know Mitch reached out. I don't know if you saw that, but we're trying to figure out a day for DC. But I feel good about that. Although I made the mistake of deep diving more into certain runs and was like, oh, but what if I used this? And what if I used that? And now it's like, shit, I got too many ideas. So, oh, also, I picked up the old collection of iVampire and read it. It's really interesting. Like the art's interesting as well. I don't know if I like it, but and then I picked up the New 52 stuff, the 3 trades. And they're they're just so different, I think, than everything else was going on at the time. But it did have like a pseudo Justice League Dark in it, which I did enjoy. But yeah, I have a lot more interest in Andrew Bennett as a character, especially in the New 52 version where he was basically the vessel for Kane. So when someone killed him, which happens in the first trade, Kane is just let out in his body, and just all the vampires are like, "Daddy's home." And then eventually, Madame Xanadu has to beg. They never exactly tell you who the deity is to put Andrew Bennett back on the mortal coil. And Deadman and John Constantine find him in purgatory and ask him to come back, and he is like, "No, nope, I am not returning. I lived for thousands of years.
Yeah.
I lived for a long time, and I did not do right, and I don't want to return to that." Also, that he and Constantine do not like one another. That he think John Constantine. John Constantine looks at him as a useless fop, and he looks at John Constantine as just a moralist asshole. And whoever wrote that book really did like push the John Constantine as a prick narrative pretty good, because he's like constantly even like needling Deadman, and Deadman's just like, just shut the fuck up, like, just stop, like, just no one cares, John. You're just talking to talk now. So also kind of Weasley trying to get out of like this confrontation that's happening, while everyone else is like, I guess we've got to fight till we die, and he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go over here and magically whisk myself away. Sorry, Zatanna and everybody else, but I'm out. Anyway, yeah, interesting stuff. So another character, because I know that he, as we talked about before, was in the Doctor 13 miniseries that we both enjoyed very much.
Yeah.
As a character who was being written out of continuity. So might be some character to revisit in our DC game.
Yeah, I don't know really anything about iVampire, so I know he exists, but I have not dealt with him.
He's kind of the classic, English gentleman gets attacked by a vampire, kills the vampire at the same time it gets bit, and then becomes a vampire, and then in the OG story kills his lover, who's Mary Seward from Dracula.
Okay.
Turns her, and she immediately is like, this is fucking amazing. Like, we're gonna rule the world. He's like, no, I don't want to do that. Like this is a bad idea. And she's like, you're fucking weak, man. I'm off and running. This is gonna be awesome. So Bloody Mary, Queen of Vampires, is basically what she turns herself into, and he's constantly like trying to kind of like stop her. It does have a little bit of a 70s Marvel vibe to it as well.
Yeah, it was a 70s book at DC, wasn't it, originally?
Yeah. It feels very much like a heroic version of like Fury of Dracula.
Okay.
If Dracula was on the side of like Harkness and the Night Stalkers characters, trying to kill a bigger bad, that's kind of what it feels like. So it's kind of an inversion of what Marvel was doing, but it has that same kind of darkish vibe of like, hey, we're skirting the comics code.
Yeah.
Very, very hard, like cutting it as close as possible.
I don't know if you've watched it yet, but I did check out a little bit of. I've started watching Batman Cape Crusader.
I haven't watched it yet, but and I can't remember. There's two DC animation guys I watch. One's called Serum Lake. I know. I can't remember the other one is. Oh, Implicitly Pretentious, and they both do video essays on DC animation, and I can't remember which one of it was. Did like one on every episode of Cape Crusader. But I think it's Serum Lake will do them themed on like, his one on Batman BTAS's Clayface was called like Tragedy, and it's just all about how like Matt Hagen's entire existence in that cartoon is all built around one tragic moment, and then the inability to not just stabilize his form, but stabilize his morality and his emotional state. They're not terribly long essays. I think both of them, they never go longer than like 30 minutes, but they both do really good essays. And I'm a big mark for the DC animated stuff. So
I just so I watched the episode it was the Gentleman Ghost episode.
I love Gentleman Ghost.
Well, so the take they did on him was really interesting. To me, in that episode, because he was a an early, he came from a family that had been here since the Pilgrims, essentially, and the king had granted his family this big plot of land, and he had this big mansion or whatever. And then as the revolution started happening, he was a loyalist and also a gambler, and he like squandered all his money and became a highwayman. To
I believe that's what he was in the original comics. I know he was a highwayman.
Yes, but the difference here is that he blamed essentially democracy and whatever. He's like, no, I was born superior. I deserve my wealth and status. So he was like a kind of a reverse Robin Hood, because in the episode he is only stealing from poor people.
Yeah,
like, he's stealing from charities. He like robs a train, and there's Harvey Dent is on there doing like a photo op, and he's like, "Oh well, no, I'm not going to take any of your money. You're
I like that.
You're a man of breeding and taste. But this guy over here who just got off work at the factory, I'm taking his. Give me your wallet."
I like that. I haven't watched it yet. From what I've watched of stuff about it though, that it does some really interesting stuff, which I'm a big fan of, especially with like Bullock taking him in a very different direction, Montoya in a different direction, and Harley Quinn in a far different direction.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's a cool thing. I mean, that they're not just going, we're just going to retread previous ground.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I there's parts of it that haven't really struck for me, but overall I'm enjoying it, and it's well done.
The art is great. It looks really good. I just have not.
And the casting, I mean, Christina Ricci as Catwoman, and then Minnie Driver as
as Penguin.
As Penguin, yeah. As
a very inspired choice, I thought.
Oh yeah, yeah. What they did with Penguin was very interesting.
Yeah, I have this weird thing sometimes. Oh God damn it, Super Spike! I just saw your beacon call in the Discord. Oh, that's great. I like when when a creator will take what was done, and you can see the DNA in it, but they make enough changes to make it their own.
Yeah,
you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but when you can take something and make enough alterations to it to make it stand on its own new merit. I really enjoy that. Like I think that's an interesting way to continue to move characters and things forward.
Well, at this point with, a lot of these characters, it's like, okay, they're always going to exist as, some kind of, um, they're never going to get an ending.
Yeah.
So you might as well, try these different takes, play with the formula or the tropes a bit, because why not?
Yeah.
Batman, there's always going to be a Batman story that's just going. So you might as well take that aside and do, something different.
That's why I think Absolute Batman has worked so well.
Yeah.
It's because you're seeing Batman that's familiar but completely, the DNA is familiar, but everything else is way different. Same thing with Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Superman. It makes me intrigued to see what that rest of the Absolute universe is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Martian Manhunter, because Javier Rodriguez is just amazing. But Flash, I don't know. We'll see.
To me, they've done what Hickman did in kind of reviving the Ultimate Universe. Mm-hmm. Is take again what's familiar, the DNA, and changing it. Like the Ultimate Universe, making Bruce Banner a huge, terrifying villain, but at the same time making Hulk just frightening. Like the whole calmness and being the Iron Fist and having these immortal gamma weapons and being virtually unbeatable. The idea of Wolverine as the Winter Soldier also just is to me, very inspired choice. It's like, that's really interesting, because you could tell a lot of interesting stories when you smush those two characters together, because they're very similar. So they have very similar DNA. So mushing them is fascinating to me. Luke Cage. I read a preview of the Luke Cage stuff. That's a really cool take on Luke Cage. As far as you're taking a young black guy at age 15. What is he going into prison for? He doesn't even understand. And his person who's talking to him in prison doesn't even care. I mean, it's very much like, hey, this is, again, like talking about societies in the second stage of collapse. That's a very, very relevant and honest take on prison, and also that prison system. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Private prison systems run by essentially a super science organization having a prison system full of people they can experiment on is also, the prison is in space also makes me really stupidly happy for some reason, because it's just like, it's that one cherry on top of extra dorkiness.
Yeah.
Makes it next level. That stuff is really interesting to me. Like when you can take what I know, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but man, I love the idea and what I've read of Peter Parker as an adult Spider-Man with a family.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it so far.
It changes the dynamic so much. It's like happy Peter Parker, but it's still Peter. I always feel like mainstream Peter Parker is the guy who, in some ways, is always at the brink of, I've got nothing left to lose. So I'm fighting for the last shred of what I have. And what I have, and by doing so, I'm fighting for everybody who's, has on their last shred of what they have. Ultimate Peter Parker feels like the guy who's like, I do know what I have to lose. And I have everything to lose. And so therefore, I think everyone else does too. It's like the inverse, which makes him very interesting. Yeah. And you get somewhat of your happy ending, I guess, a little bit, like that he actually, there was no editorial mandate to ruin a marriage. Which still is like, what?
Yeah.
That's the thing too. Like, I don't understand why comic editors think that is something that needs to happen when there's so many characters that I have enjoyed pre being married and post being married that are married. Like, I always loved Ralph and Sue Dibney. I don't know if you were ever a.
It's a reaction to the, I don't know. Just
Did you
reaction
ever read Valiant stuff? Were you a
because
Valiant?
they kept like, kind of going like, oh, Mary Jane's dead. Oh, now she's back. Oh, it's like, so they were like trying different stuff for whatever reason. It was just that for a while there, it's like, oh no, this story is done or something, and it's like,
Did you ever read Valiant stuff, Matt?
no, I really haven't.
I would recommend The Second Life of Dr. Mirage.
Okay.
It is a character, the main character, who dies in the very first issue and is a ghost. But his wife is still alive and she can see him. And they go do adventures together. It's great. But it's also kind of the Lady Hawk vibe of like, we're in love, but we can never touch each other again. You can do interesting stuff with like those dynamics. I mean, in some ways, Batman and Robin are sort of married. If you want to look at that, there's the similar dynamics there. You can still do your fucking weird soap opera shit because marriage is the greatest adventure. It's fucking hard. There's conflicts and everything. And you can still play with those and you play those tropes, but it just seems like no one wants to do that.
Yeah, I don't.
Because you're not, hey, Marvel DC, you're not pitching to fucking 12-year-olds anymore. You are pitching to people now who are married. Like that's one reason you got so much shit about Spider-Man is people are like, hey, we grew up with this character. We're married. He also be married like us. Be married like us.
There's the whole, not even the, I don't know what I was going to say here. I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Lazy.
I think it's partly the Johns, because love him, hate him. I go back and forth. I feel like there's a lot of stuff there that it's like, okay, dude, what the fuck? But John's whole thing at DC was, I'm gonna take things back to the way I first came to them. So Hal's Green Lantern, Barry's the Flash, this, that, and the other. It's like,
well, so I will say this about that. He also did what 4 years on Wally as the Flash.
He did, and
Wally was married the whole time.
But then, as he gained influence and reputation, he took that and was like, okay, well, fuck all that. We're going to go back to the Silver Age. And I feel like that was part of what happened with Spidey, where it's like, well, this is what we remember. This is what we liked. So we're going to take him back to that.
So I always look at like John's and stuff too, is his gravitational pull with the Golden Age characters, of course, I think drug everything back towards Silver Age. But it's always done with a weird modern spin on it. And I don't mean weird in a bad way. I will always point towards his Avengers run at Marvel as that. He put Wasp and Ant-Man back together, and one of the weirder sex scenes you'll ever read in a comic book. But that Avengers team is very much a mix of the modern and Silver Age-ish group. And the more modern portion of it was that there was political tension between people. This idea that Black Panther was kind of like, oh, me being here wasn't just because we're friends. It's because I'm protecting my country. And you're all basically walking propaganda weapons.
Oh, that goes back to Christopher Priest's run on.
Yeah. So. But I don't think it had overtly ever been in the Avengers book. And also having him on the same team with the Submariner, which I think laid the seeds of what Hickman took later and blew up during his time, where they basically just got straight up murderous with one another. I mean, That's that's a relationship so fractured. I don't know if Marvel can ever put it back together, and I don't think they should.
No, there's no need to.
Yeah, I think it has to be like, I think there's certain characters in comics that are monarchs, and it's that idea of being a monarch that should keep them not at each other's throat, but just at least as like at best allies, at best, and tenuous at that. Like Doom and Black Panther and Namor and Mole Man, we could go on and on those characters, and then some of them that are more like just nationalism symbols. I think there needs to be that tension between them because they're literally the living embodiment of their people.
Yeah.
And in that they're protecting their people. Black Adam in DC, same thing.
I think
go ahead, man.
Played into this shift partly is the reduction of page counts. So I think we're down from 20. I mean, it was 28 was the standard for a lot of books, and now it's down to 20. I think.
But do you think that that's between that and then decompression styled storytelling?
Not even. I mean, that hasn't helped, but I think the reduction in page count. It's like even if you're writing in a more compressed style, you don't really you just don't have as much space to get into the the soap opera stuff, the supporting cast. There's a reason that supporting casts have dropped away in a lot of books. It's just, there's not as much room to do stuff like that.
Well, also writing for the trade.
Sure, but I mean,
I think those three things work together in order to make storytelling far more focused on the one character and kind of reducing the secondary cast to even being almost tertiary in some situations.
Yeah,
I think you're right about.
You can't spend 2-3 pages in an issue on what Robbie Robertson or Pepper Potts are doing, and why it ties into stuff, and build that over the course of a couple issues until it can intersect with the main character's plot like you used to be able to. So
there's a Pixies song, which I'm sure you're well aware of, called Wave of Mutilation.
Yes.
All I can think of is Wave of Decompression. Like as an actual concept in DC, DC game.
I mean, comics. I have been. I picked it up on kind of a whim, and I've actually really been enjoying it. Kind of fits into that same space as, and it sucks that they had to stop with Local Man because it just wasn't financially sustainable. Like, yeah, we love doing this book, but it's not paying the bills. But anyway, Joe Casey is doing an Image book called Blood Squad 7. And the basic idea of it is like early on, all the Image books it was a shared continuity. And due to, people leaving and rights moving around and stuff like that, that's not the case anymore. This is basically Joe Casey putting a version of Youngblood back into the shared Image universe.
Oh, interesting.
It's not Youngblood, but it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, well, yeah, all this stuff, it's like, yeah, because Youngblood crossed over with Savage Dragon and Spawn and Wildcats and all this stuff, and they're just gone now. And that was actually a plot point in Local Man that I liked a lot too, because there was this, this character who's like, the man that I love no longer exists.
Yeah. Local Man was very good.
Yes, I liked it a lot. I've got to get you the rest of it because it wrapped up. But yeah, so it's him kind of playing with that. And then also, I mean, execution wasn't there, but the concept of, like a government created celebrity super team is a good one.
Yeah.
And now it's dealing with that as like, okay, it's 30 years later, there's baggage, and we're still, it's the push pull of government and the public, the PR side of things, and superheroes as celebrities.
And I think that's a concept that's been done a couple times very, very well. I think Ecstatic did it really well.
Yeah,
I think that in, what was it, Final Crisis, I want to say, or no, it was in
yeah,
Multiversity.
yeah. There was a couple things there. Yep.
That was done really well. Kind of the showing the vapidness of
And
what
this is
happens when these characters just are like, they're far more interested in celebrity than actually doing superheroics,
right. And
which is
this
to me very interesting.
this at least so far hasn't been. I mean, they're aware of it, and they're like, no, we don't want this. This needs to be different this time, and we're not going to try and like. You're going to be public figures, but we don't want to turn you into celebrities because we saw that it didn't work.
Well, that was the what was the Marvel book that was supposed to be the Champions that Fraction
the
wrote?
Order, yeah.
The Order, or even Lex Luthor's Everyman project.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all weird marketing
Yeah,
tools, which again plays back into the whole uh you know second stage of collapse, like in Severance type of thing, where especially just wait till second season when you have to deal with the fallout of Helly going on television. Because man, Matt, I'll tell you what, the way that all that's dealt with is fucking scary. And your boy Milkshake, he is right in the middle of all that.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's some shit in that second episode of second season that left me like, I was like, Doug, you have to pause this for a second. I have to think about this. There is something that's given to him where you're like, that is fucking creepy. Like, it's straight up just my hair on the back of my neck all stood up at the same time. And I was just like, what does this mean? Like, the board gives him this thing and you're like, I don't. And he has an interaction with the person who gives it to him for the board. And there's this moment where they make eye contact and he looks very much like he's trying to figure out what it means to him. And that character's like, they gave this to me as well when I was promoted. And there's this look of almost dual cultural sadness. And then it away just as quickly as it was there. The character who plays that part was so good in that moment because you can see their face go from yes, yes, yes to this is fucking horrible to yes, yes, yes. Like it is gut wrenching because they stare at each other for a good minute with no dialogue.
Oh wow!
And her face goes through that like range of emotions, and his face does not change because because you get to, like I said, you get to know a little bit more about that dude, and you're like, okay. Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I can't wait to talk.
I'm looking forward to it.
Anyway, yeah, no, I do love the idea of celebrity and what does it actually mean for the characters? Is it their interest or is the interest of higher powers who are financing? There's a Darkest of the Hillsides Thicket song called Power Up that basically is about that. It's like about them being superheroes, and like then it talks about like $29.95 for each Magnum gun charge. Like basically it's like they're losing their financing at the end of the song from the government.
Well, there's a character in Blood Squad 7, Ripcord, and he's like the third Ripcord, I think, and all of them have been. It's like a super soldier program.
Yeah.
And over the course of the first arc, before the team is public, they're doing essentially like, not black ops, but covert stuff overseas,
wet works
and whatnot. But so this Ripcord guy, they don't know it, but he has basically lost it, and he is just mass murdering like women and stuff when in between missions, and they find out and have to take him down, and they dig into it, and it's like, oh, the process that gave him the powers he had, He was military, I think, and all the ripcords have been military, and so it's a military program, the Neutral Ray.
This all sounds very Thunder Agents too.
There's definitely that, but yeah, so it basically due to the changes it makes to your system, you pretty much die within 4 years.
So it is very Thunder Agents.
Yeah, and so he knew this and was basically like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, until the team becomes public. And I'm never gonna get my chance to be like a superhero. So like I'm never gonna get a chance to be out in the public, like, look at me, I did all this, I'm this good guy who helps people. So you're gonna remember me some way or another.
Oh God.
Yeah, and then so they have to activate activate the next ripcord to come in and help take the first one or this last one down. And now the director of the program, who was a member of the original team and is now like the liaison to the government and the team leader, is looking into it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, like this kind of changes how it, like what happened to the first ripcord when he went out." And we don't know what happened, but I think it's like that he sacrificed himself to save the team or something, but maybe didn't need to. And so a bit of that where it's like, okay, I know I'm gonna die from this process that made me into a superhero. So yeah, that was interesting. Which I liked. And yeah, so the team leader was on the original team, and now her daughter is on the new team. And so there's the dynamics of that. One of the other people on the team is the son of one of the enemies of the original team. And they're like, "We don't want you here." And he's like, "Your mom, tried to kill my mom." And he's like, "Yeah, my mom was a fucking psycho. She tried to kill me too."
That's interesting. So you talking about that made me immediately think, what if there is a character kind of whose entire ability is to not rewrite history, but rewrite public perception of history? What a tool that is in the wrong hands. So not mind control, but like kind of, I guess, subtle perception control, or be able to insert or pull out certain things in order to change, like, I guess, like, I keep saying perception, but yeah, that's what it is. Also, one more thing I wanted to say about Paranoia. Paranoia, the RPG, is technically a co-op competitive game, because part of what you're doing at the table is also screwing each other over, because you must report to Big Brother if you find mutant commies, but you're all mutant commies. I think I'm going to try to put my nose to the ground, because it's also a very simple system, but I think I'd like to do something like that, because again, one of the things that I noticed really quickly about Severance was like how it feels like analog horror or liminal space horror in a lot of ways.
Okay.
It's disorienting. Like, that's another thing I will say about the way that the first episode, the first like 10 minutes of the season 2, episode 1 is shot. It is the way the camera is constantly moving. As you're following Mark S through the hallways, it's so liminal horror. It's so backrooms. Like he thinks he knows where he's going. And you're like, Mark, where are you going? Like, no. As well as there's a scene later on in the season that's shot like a goddamn spy thriller, and it's purposely shot with the whole looking at the watch, cut, looking at the watch, and it's real interesting, like, because it sets the mood for what's going on so well. Like this on that show, maybe better than any show I've watched of recent. They are so good at subtly changing, like, the camera, lighting, and motion to almost change genre in the middle of an episode. There's also a conversation between Milkshake and Mark S. Mark S's Audi in Mark S's house. And it's interesting because while Mark S has control of the conversation, it's shot so you only see one side of his face lit and the other side completely dark.
Mm.
And the moment Milkshake takes back control of the conversation by giving information that Mark S is interested in, his face becomes that same way. Whereas before you could see the entirety of his face being lit. It's such an interesting way because to me, I'm looking at it as like, oh, are they showing like the duplicitous nature of this conversation of who has control based upon information? That this feels like everything they do in that show feels like it's being done for a reason visually. Like
Yeah.
nothing is happenstance. And it's like not subliminal storytelling, but definitely storytelling through visuals rather than like through visual language. And I am not a film guy. Like that stuff is far beyond my skill and all that. But I find it so interesting in that show, especially that from moment one, and especially the first time they show the like opening, I know you thought was very AI, Matt, but like how many things they slip in there that are
Oh
very
yeah.
extremely important to the show. Which, like I said, second season they changed the opening. And there's a lot of little hinty boys dropped in there where I'm like,
Oh, there's a reason that the opening wasn't on the first episode of the series.
yes,
My big thing now is just hoping that they've got enough, that this isn't Lost or Westworld.
that's what Doug said. Doug is a Lost guy, and even Doug was like, I love this show, but God, I pray it doesn't turn into Lost. And Lost is his favorite TV show of all time, and even he's like, oh, don't become Lost.
Well, and I think Lost and Westworld also, and I don't know what the you know how what the plan is with this, but like it's the whole like, well, it's the same. It's what happened with the Clone Saga at Marvel, where it's like, oh shit, this thing is popular. We need to just keep doing it, and it's like, but we didn't. It wasn't intended to just go on forever. Like it was part of the reason that Hickman stepped away from the X titles, because he's like, my plan for this was to go this long and go through these phases, and they decided they wanted to stay in this phase of it for longer, and I understand that, and but I don't. It's not what I wanted to do, so I stepped away. And I don't. I feel like it worked, but it could have gone like, oh no, you stayed there too long,
Yeah, I think in some ways it did. Also, you can tell, even though some of the people who took over for Hickman are exceptional writers and told exceptional stories, you can tell that there's a hiccup in the middle of that where he leaves, and it never really gains back its full momentum. And I feel like the last part of the Krakoa saga is by far the weakest because the ending does not land. It doesn't land and it feels rushed. It feels like it should be where it's slow, it should be fast, and where it's fast, it should be slow. And the ending is not satisfying. So I mean, I think that there was a brilliant idea. I think the team that came in after him across the line of books did a Herculean effort to make it as good as it was. But it was also like, hey, here's some notes by the guy who was carrying this. Good luck. And they did a great job, but it just doesn't hold together. And that's what happens when you put one guy's ideal vision of things on something, and then you come back to your guy and say, we need more. And he's like, that's not what I do. Like I have it's the same thing with like, if you look back at The Prisoner, the television show, he was like, I have 14 episodes. And then they're like, we want 17. And he's like, okay, I can do 17. And then they came back and say, we need 23. And he was like, if you ask me to do 6 more episodes, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do, and you will not enjoy it. And it will not be very coherent to the rest of the show, because he has said, McGowan has said later on in interviews, like, you only really need to watch 7 episodes to get what I'm doing. Because that's really the story I wanted to tell. Everything else is just like, it can be there, but it doesn't need to be there. but in order for us to be able to show it in America, I had to do all these extra things because that's what
Yeah.
that's what the networks demanded.
Mm.
And so he's like, I did it, but I also told them, like, this is mine. I am the writer, the producer, I have my hand in the direction, and I'm the star. What are you going to do? There is no show without me. He's like, I'll meet your demands, but they're going to be met on my terms. And I think, Hickman's, I give Hickman all of the kudos in the world because he does not bend. It's like, this is what I set out to do. This is what I'm going to do. And if you want to change it, then I'm out.
Yeah.
And he has enough clout, and he has enough, like, because he's so good, he has the ability to do that. And I adore that, the fact that he does. It's similar, like Mike Mignola, same thing. I'm going to tell my story. When my story's done, it's done.
Yep.
You want more? Tough. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That's done. That book is done. Like, we're not going back to that until I have something to say about it. But
yeah,
when creators do that, I mean,
well, that's what I hope is happening here. It's like, no, we've got our story. We know where this is going. We know how it's going to develop, and we're not gonna,
Don't you get the impression though when you're watching that it is, and the people involved are very like, I don't think Ben Stiller needs money. Ben Stiller.
I mean, I do get that sense, but I also got that from the first 2 seasons of Westworld, and then they whizzed that down their leg.
Yeah. I mean, but look at, on the flip side of that, look at oh god damn it, now I can remember the name of the show that was on HBO with the vampires and stuff that I really loved. Had all the pulp characters in it. The pulpy monsters were in it.
You
know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
God dang it. It's going to bug me that I can't remember that. Give me a second. It'll come to me. Talk amongst yourselves.
I never watched it, but I know it didn't have
Penny Dreadful.
Yes.
Penny Dreadful, they were like, hey, we got 3 seasons and that's it. They were like, HBO was like, you want to do another season? They were like, no, most certainly not. And that's why they came back and they did another series without the people originally involved during a different time period, which I have not watched yet, but I heard it's pretty good. But that, I will say about that particular show as well, it does not end with the most satisfying of endings, but it ends with an ending. If that makes any sense. It's like, it's kind of like you're not promised this ending. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to end. It's going to end the way we intended. And if you like it, good. If you don't, fuck you. This was the ending the whole time. And I like that. Like, it's the folks involved sticking to their guns and be like, this is the story we had to tell. And if you like it, good. If you didn't, it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
Penny Dreadful. Have you watched that, Matt?
I have not. No.
I highly recommend it. It's very good. It's very, very good. It's very well acted. It's like what League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the movie, should have been, except for with just the monstrous characters. I think it has a much better portrayal of Dorian Gray. He looms the entire show over of Dracula, but you never meet him. You just see everything involved and you realize how fucking terrifying he is. It's got Timothy Dalton as basically a version of Alan Quartermain. And what a prick. This was his warm-up for playing the Chief. And it's really good. Josh Hartnett as an American in London who later on, I'm not spoiling anything, he found he's a fucking werewolf. And he fled America because he killed a bunch of people. It's really, really good. Frankenstein's monster. It just like all of this shit ties into each other, and these characters sometimes are working towards the same ends, but never really run into each other. You know what I
Okay.
mean? They're like
Yeah.
almost living like parallel existences with NPCs that kind of are not main characters who kind of interweave their stories together. So
Okay.
it's kind of interesting that you have some characters, or for lack of a better term, are like your little super team, but it's not a superhero show. It's a horror show.
Yeah.
Talk about Marvel, 70s Marvel. This is very 70s Marvel. But then you have other characters who are moving along the same pathway, but parallel. So they never have like, there's never a moment Avengers Assemble a moment. There's just never, it never happens, which is very interesting to me. Um, I do highly. There's only 3 seasons, and goddamn, is it pretty! It is a pretty show. Um, but yeah, I that in itself, like also being able to like, what does that card do? I would really love to see your characters in a Victorian-esque setting. Damn, all of our just bullshit. Look how much we got just for DC
Yeah,
show.
just bullshitting. Yeah.
I got it. So I am now. I've said it here. I'm gonna run this fucking a paranoia game before 2026. I'm doing it. I've committed to it.
Nice.
Somewhere Hess Snow openly weeps out of joy because they have asked me a few times, like, "Hey, you from Paranoia?" I've played Paranoia. I've never run it. You know what'd be good? You could run Paranoia. Now, before we kind of wrap up, what are you working on?
I've just been putzing around with stuff. You know, I don't have anything super
Getting
exciting.
new stuff in the mail lately?
Oh well, I mean, always, but
Give me a good rundown of what you got in the mail, Matthew. Don't give me like always.
well, I've been getting random crap off of AliExpress. I got
Oh, what'd you get off AliExpress?
chairs and
Ooh.
got a whole mahjong table that I'm not going to move because it'll make a mess. Um,
I'm trying to think of a little thing. I think we talked about this before, but I picked up a while back like some fantasy stuff from a certain company. I think it's Japanese that I really liked. See if I can find it real quick.
yeah, I got some drums.
Ooh.
It's just weird.
Remit.
Oh yeah, no, I've actually just bought a bunch of remit stuff myself.
Yeah, I picked up some fantasy stuff from Remint. It's really good. It's very cool.
Yeah, the main issue that I have with the remit stuff is that the scale is inconsistent.
I would agree with that.
And I think it matters, less with the fantasy stuff, but it still does matter. But I'm like getting like, I got a set of like medical, there's like a hospital set, and it's like, oh yeah, here's a wheelchair and a bed and whatever. And it's like, these are really cool. I can't use them; they're too small,
I
And then
know
there's
they
other
use them as like stuff that's knocked over.
I don't know, but then there's other stuff in there that it's like, oh yeah, this I can use, if I wanted to, and it's weird that it's not consistent,
Yeah.
But,
I did get a box of stuff from BBTS. I was going to open it on stream, and then I didn't. But I did get. You got me a Horde Trooper because Walmart finally delivered, because it does every once in a fucking blue moon.
yes.
But I also had another one I didn't realize I had ordered, and it had come in. So I got one of those. I got Necroconda.
Nice.
God, what a good figure. I wish the soft goods were a little bit better as far as like the hood fitting a little bit better. But this
I didn't even know it had soft goods. It was a really cool design.
I think I like it better with with the snake lower body.
Mm.
The head kind of.
But it's nice that there's enough going on that you could display multiples. Different.
That's the thing. I think I'm going to buy 2 more, so I can have use them as like troops. But look at that hood. Doesn't it's?
Yeah, that's a little funky. So one thing you can do that I do with soft goods to help them work better is you can just wet it down.
Okay.
So take the whole thing, leave it on the figure where you want it. Wet the whole figure down and then just let it dry, and it kind of helps it to drape a little bit more naturally. Okay. I've done that with a few different things. Oh yeah, I can't remember if I ever did. Where did I put him? I don't think I ever did. You ever did? I posted it on stuff. I don't know if you ever saw my
Kolchak.
Columbo.
Oh, there was Carl Kolchak for a second. Then no hat.
No, that's
a good looking. It's a good looking Columbo.
I'm pretty happy with him. I'm keeping an eye out for a better head if whatever comes along.
What else came? Cartoon collection. Hordak, Montana.
I want that. I want that Filmation trap jaw for
Filmation. That's what I meant. Filmation, Hordak, Montana, Ram Man, who is amazing. Only to be topped by She-Ra. She-Ra might be the best goddamn figure in the entire line.
I mean, especially compared to the first one.
Yeah, the Derp.
Yeah, that one did
the
not.
Derp is strong there. Triclops Filmation collection looks great. I mean, there just has not been a bad Filmation figure yet.
I didn't realize that Trapjaw was in stock at BBTS for the Filmation.
Also got alerted that my next pre-order. Oh, you can see the Filmation guys back behind me doing their dark business. The next Heroes of Grayskull wave came in, or is coming in. I was alerted to. So, hey, BBTS, slow the fuck down, man.
I mean, take it up with Mattel.
Yeah, like 3 waves hit all on top of each other within 3 months.
Yeah, no, it's been. I mean,
I did get real blast
just this time of year for a lot of this stuff because I'm in the same boat with all the Marvel shit.
Yeah, Real Blast. I did order Real Blast. I got an extra one in case you wanted it.
Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm gonna try for Masterverse Panther or not. I don't know.
It's a good looking figure, Matt.
It is, but it's big and it won't be cheap. That's what, next week? Yeah, next week.
I think it's like $30.
Really?
Between 30 and 40 would be my guess.
We'll see how I'm feeling when it rolls around. I got a whole wave of Marvel Legends I'll be pre-ordering this week. So
yeah, you and I need to sit down too and hang out and do some looking at building our Scum and Villainy and Hidden Path Star Wars boys, because I've started to look at additional parts off of other lines, like the Valaverse stuff and Marvel Legends, and be like, whose stuff looks like it's Star Wars?
I was gonna say, and then obviously it's
Monster Force,
a little ways off, but Danny and I were talking, and we'll definitely have to get some grilling or something going once the weather's nice enough. She had mentioned she would like to make that happen. So,
hell yeah. Well, I mean, like I tell everybody, I'm gonna grill on this day, and people show up with your meat or your goods, and I will grill happily or smoke your food. But yeah, I would enjoy that very much. Yeah, I would be good to sit down with folks and just kind of hammer through some things. And plus, we need a board game real bad. Yes. I want to play Book It so bad right now with all of the belts and the tag teams and everything else. I mean, I'm stoked about that. Also, I need to bug David again about, hey, are you willing to do the art for the hometown kids thing we want to do? Speaking of which, did you go to David's to watch Royal Rumble last night?
No.
Okay. Neither did I.
I wished him a happy birthday, but I mean, honestly, just not my jam.
Not mine either, but I love the fact that he still does it.
Yep. I hope you had fun. I hope it was a good crew over there. But I mean, just for me, it's like, yeah, I don't think that personally I'm going to enjoy this very much. So I'm going to not.
A couple times previously, I've done that trip over there for that event, and it's been a while. I did not have fun, so
I'm just, and I'm trying not to feel guilty about it.
don't Matt, don't. I will tell you now, as friend to Matt, as friend, don't.
Well,
He understands it. He doesn't ever hold it. I am like, hey, I appreciate the ask. That you asking means everything to me, but it's just not for me. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of it is my own, myself being knowing that I am very like my first instinct when somebody asks me, "Hey, do you want to go do a thing?" is to be no. um, and
that's why we're good friends.
I don't necessarily like that about myself. But I also need to understand, or I need to be okay with the fact that I need to do that when I want to, but that's not a reason to go do something that I don't want to do.
No, and that's the thing. I'm never going to give you shit about that because there's just times where you only have so many spoons, and once they're used up, they're used up.
Yeah.
I will say in a non-joking manner, I have a very finite amount of patience.
Yeah.
And once my patience gets used up, and it's generally Monday through Friday while I'm at work, I don't have a whole lot left. So sometimes I'm just like, I'm talked out. I got nothing left in the tank. So I have to be willing and able to go, yeah, I can't.
Right.
Or I can do mindless shit, but I can't meet some of the requirements.
Yeah. You're not gonna, you're not gonna notice that, or I don't have anything for you.
Yeah. That's why sometimes when I'm like, I got to cancel because I feel like shit or whatever, I always feel bad, especially when some people, and no one does it purposefully, no one does it with malice, but some people will be like, ugh, and I get mad and I'm like, I'm not your fucking entertainment.
Right.
I'm just not. I do this because I want to when I have the ability to do it, but sometimes I just don't. And I try to be. I'm trying to learn to be okay with that. That's all there is to it. That's hard, man. I admire the fact that you figured it out way sooner than I did. But not to bury the lead, but one kind of last thing. Um, I may have made a tiny error, Matthew.
Oh.
I bought a resin printer.
Oh no.
And a wash and cure station. And resin.
I mean, I've got to get my printer going.
Do you have a resin printer, Matt?
I think it's a resin printer. The the guy that runs Nanif Productions. They do a lot of like Transformers add-on kits and stuff. He was getting rid of, upgrading the ones that they were using, for prototyping and stuff. And he's like, I don't have a use for this. Would you like it? And I'm like, well, yeah. I just haven't had time to actually, or taken the time rather, to actually set it up.
Well, maybe we can learn how to use our resin printers together.
Mine's definitely an older one. I know he sent one to Dave as well, so that's the one that Dave's got, and Dave's got it all set up and everything.
I got Dave's is resin, I believe, because he was talking about like.
Yeah, mine's the same. Mine's the same model as Dave's. Then
so. I think it's an Ogaloo or Egaloo.
Yeah, it might be.
I picked up at Anycubic. I was looking at refurbished, and then when I bought it from their store on eBay, I did not realize it was a brand new printer.
Oh,
brand new curing and washing station and ever bio resin, and it was cheaper there than it was on their goddamn website. So,
yeah, I've been looking at or at work. They've got a bunch of printers, that we use for various things. And so I've been experimenting there and kind of getting a handle on it. So just got to find a spot, get mine set up, clean out the damn basement here.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out too the same thing, but I was like, I have gigs of files.
Oh, see, I am, I am making my own designs.
That's one thing I want to learn how to do. I love that, Matt. That's a great design. I want to do that too. I know
it's not my design, but I created this model. So
yeah, and that's what I want to learn how to do as well.
It's just a GI Joe helmet.
It's a great looking helmet, though.
That I just recreated at a larger scale, but just to experiment and see. But yeah, the ones that work. I don't know if you can tell from this, but the resolution is just not good enough.
Got to be dialed in a little bit, and it requires some sanding, and just
well, that's the thing.
That looks like PLA though.
Yeah, this is PLA.
Okay,
that's what we have at work. So
okay.
And it's like if I can just use the work printer and print one up in 20 minutes, just because this is more to check size and fit than.
I like the helmet though; it looks good.
It's not to this isn't to use for anything, but it's more just like, okay, is this the size and shape that I need it and want it to be?
Yeah. Well, that was my big shame because I haven't talked to Sandra yet. I'm sure she was gonna be excited, but I'm gonna be like, sorry, I wanted this for a while. I had the money. So it's a gift from me to me. Yeah. Actually, I got it all that cheaper than I bought my PLA printer when it came out. So
nice.
And it is like considered the best starter printer. So I did a bunch of research. I hemmed and hawed for over a month. And then once I was like, I had the money or I could put it in savings. I was like, I kept thinking about like, well, if I buy these online, how pricey are they going to be? The heads I have already in STL form,
yeah,
it's going to cost me a shit ton of money when I can just make them myself. So it's kind of what I boiled down to, which is just, yeah. I am at the same. I'm super excited at the same time. I'm like, oh god. Matt, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me here most Sundays. I haven't been around for a little bit, but there's been stuff going on.
Neither have I, so don't feel bad.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. I'm just saying. And then I'm on the Dave Wonder channel for Chop and Shop every other week. So not this week, the week after.
Anything you're working on Chop and Shop?
We'll see what I've got when I get there. I mean, I've got, I've got some paint to finish up yet on this.
Ooh, that Michael Knight.
Yeah. And then I've got just whatever I'm poking at. I got all kinds of shit on my desk here. I got a bunch of printed heads that are coming in the mail to me that I'm working on stuff. So yeah.
Like I said, we'll apparently we're gonna be printing boys, so we'll be able to get those heads on a far less pricey factor. I'll be here tomorrow because it's the Chaos Scar makeup session from last month, and then the week after for Star Wars. Yeah. And then I don't know when else. Trying to think. I probably will be on a little bit more to play video games because my hip's feeling a little bit better, so I might get in some pedaling.
Well, and you'll have your fancy new Mochin.
Yeah, mine's and Moria's already loaded up. So is Enshrouded. I'm super pumped to play both those games. I'm hoping Zomboid will run a little smoother. Matt, the graphics card in this thing is fucking huge. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. I'm like, why is a graphics card so goddamn big? It's got 3 fans on it, just the graphics card. Yeah, the whole, let's just call it the whole of the ship, had 4 built-in fans. Then we had to put 2 fans on the heatsink, and the heatsink's like that goes on top of the processor is humongous. And then the graphics card has 3 fans built into it, and all of them have LEDs. I was like, I didn't know we were doing the LED thing, and he was like, it looks cool. So I was like, it does look really cool. It's very mesmerizing to just sit there and just watch it run and be like, well, I don't want to play any games. I just want to watch this thing do its thing. So yeah, Doug's supposedly going to come over today. We're gonna dive into old boy here. Take all the hard drives out of it because I think it's got like 5 in it.
Jeez.
I don't know what we're going to do with it. This was the Plex server tower. So it's got all my wrestling on it and everything else. So we'll see what happens. Because I don't think I have room for it in my weird Dell boy here that fell off the back of a truck that got to me. And then new boy is humongous, but as he said, like if that computer was 5 years older, it would just be cluttered. But now with the way it's all streamlined, it's like, nope, it's just all the computer takes up like this much space, except for the fucking giant graphics. Let me fire it up real quick. And I'll put the camera down so y'all can see what I'm talking about. There it is. There's our new boy.
Dang.
So you can see like
yeah.
That fucking graphics card is as wide as everything else, is as long as everything else is. But like if you look how much space is there, like there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I helped build this. He made me build a lot of it. He was like, you want this built, you're going to have to do your goddamn self. So, but yeah, there's new boy. It's as opposed to old boy. If you look inside old boy, all those down the bottom there are hard drives. So it's kind of wild. There you are, Matt. Put your hand through the screen. Put your hand out, your hand touching my hand. Reach for that screen, baby. American dream. I don't know if you saw any of the results from last night's Rumble or not.
A little bit here or there, yeah.
Boy, they definitely went with a surprising choice. Good for them on the men's side.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do with that choice, but I'm very intrigued. They've got my attention. You've got my attention. All right, Matt-Hew, thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your lovely affections. If anyone watched this, thank you. You'll probably see some of these things pop up in games in the future. Tomorrow night, Chaos Scar, we're finally going to do the goddamn Soap Maker Jamboree. Come hell or high water, I'm running that goddamn game tomorrow. And then the week after, Star Wars. Here's a spoiler for you. It's not the Grisk, it's the Chiss. So yeah, I'm gonna have to talk with some slow cadence and sound really arrogant the whole time because I think that's how all Chiss talk, not just Thrawn. So I'll have to watch watch some Rebels and watch some more Ahsoka to see how dude speaks with such like disinterest. Because it does come off of like, I just can't be bothered with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Super Spike resin printer. I know. Yes. Which means if you have STLs out there, you want to potentially get printed, just reach out to me because I can put them in the giant shared file drive that I have. I will be happy for those of you who print out there to share that with you as well. Because I can't stress enough, even with the YouTube channels I talked about earlier, I put in the chat that I've been enjoying. Mega Custom X on Patreon makes some of the best goddamn Motu stuff out there. And I've been a Patreon subscriber since day one. So it's $5 and it gives you like almost 5 things a month, and they're good things. I'm excited to finally print some of those off. So anyway, from us to you, bomb us and go enjoy the rest of your goddamn weekend.